Tuesday, January 23rd. Wow. Yeah. It's Totally Football Show. Hello, we've got everyone here in the studio today. Listener, you're here. James Horncastle.
Hi, James.
Alvaro Romeo.
Hola, James.
Hola. Raphael Honigstein.
Hello, James.
Yes, and Julien Laurence.
Bonjour.
All right. James, you slept well?
Very, James. Yeah. I haven't recently, but last night, a good night's sleep.
Jules, how about you?
Very well.
Yeah, right.
And this morning I met Hector, who's one of our listeners. We were on the train together, but didn't know.
All right.
And I was on the phone, and then he heard the voice, recognized the voice, and then we had a lovely chat. Big West Ham fan, so I wanted to give him a shout out.
Which show was he listening to? Because you could hear your voice on multiple shows.
I think he listens to all of my shows and watched them all.
But especially...
It's impossible. But this time he was listening to last week's edition of the pod, and I said, you know what, I'm actually going now to record this week. So perfect.
I hear it's so exciting, Hector.
Well done, Hector.
Well done,
It was lovely.
So that's him and Will Still.
That's it, yeah.
That's both of them. You met both. All right. Okay. Alvaro, how did you sleep? Congratulations.
Thank you very
much.
I slept well, thank you. Because the little one is a saint so far.
A saint.
Yeah, what do you call him?
Yeah, Cristina. Cristina.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
she behaves very well so far.
That's super.
Yeah, she's a saint.
Santa Cristina.
Yeah.
She's a little saint.
Excellent, Alvaro. All right.
You said it 4 times. No, we get it because you said it 4 times.
But Jimbo seems not to understand it.
No, I'm delighted.
Yeah.
I'm
James
delighted.
is an atheist. He's,
No, far from it. Far from it. Rafa, you're well. Good. Excellent. Moment of the week for you.
It's another Leverkusen goal.
Yeah.
What can you do? You have to recognize the momentous occasion that happened in Leipzig. One of those games where I'm sure Bayern were hoping, okay, the Leverkusen bandwagon is going to come to a halt, or at least a bit of a stop, or slow down, I should say. But no, really late on, once again, they found a way. Pierre Hincapié, Capier, with the winner. And that puts Leverkusen 7 clear, because Bayern, as you alluded to in your very fine intro, James.
Oh, yeah, nice.
They messed things up against Werder Bremen.
Extraordinary convergence events. Hincapier's first goal since October 2022. Bayern's first defeat to Werder Bremen since 2008.
Yeah. You had Mesut Özil and Mertesacker playing for Werder.
Wow.
And Diego.
Wow. Anyway, we'll get
you don't know any of
these.
these players, do you?
Who are these names? They mean nothing to me.
He wasn't presenting at that time.
We'll get into that and the whole 7-point lead at the top of the table thing soon enough. Jules, what about you?
Well, you knew of Warren Zaïre-Emery, the PSG prodigy. I'm going to present you another one. Seny Mayulu, who played and scored for PSG in the Coupe de France game.
3 17-year-olds in the lineup.
Yeah, that's right. And also born in 06, like Zaïre-Emery for Mayulu. Paris born and bred as well. And a great future ahead of him. And Luis Enrique is a massive fan, so well done to him.
I think that's impressive. How about 2 16s in the lineup for Barcelona?
Yeah. Pau Cubarsí and Lamine Yamal. And Lamine Yamal is already, we know who he is, but Pau Cubarsí, he's from the same generation as Lamine Yamal. He played in the European Under-17 a couple of months ago, and he did a very good job in Barcelona's defense. But that is not my moment of the weekend, James, because there is
Santa Cristina.
She's a saint. Jesus Areso, a player from Osasuna, he scored an impossible goal. I don't know if you have seen it. Yeah. He scored it from the corner flag. Okay, fine. I know that you know that it's a bit accidental. It's a coincidence, but he scored from the corner flag.
Right.
The goalkeeper, I tell you, he wasn't misplaced or anything like that. The goalkeeper, David Soria from Getafe, didn't make a mistake. And this player from Osasuna scored one of the most uncanny goals of the season. I mean, it's incredible, really. You have to watch it. I mean, with no angle whatsoever. And, the Microsoft software that tells you the XG for this goal in La Liga, said that it was 0.8%, which I disagree with. I think that the
0.8?
No. Yeah, 0.8. I think that the possibility of scoring was even lower.
0.08.
Yeah, 0.08.
0.08. Okay, then I could agree with that one.
I mean, Santa Cristina, she's a saint.
So, wow, that's remarkable. I
Watch
look
it.
forward to seeing that after the show. James.
Well, we'll talk about what happened in Udine in more detail on the Serie A bit, but on a theme of what you were talking about with Jules about PSG and all these young players and what Alvaro was saying about Barcelona, you know that Juventus, I think only Barca have started, or maybe it's only PSG, it's one of the two, have started more players born in 2006 or after. So the old lady has got much younger.
All right, they've rejuvenated.
But they've rejuvenated, and it's not just tokenistic, let's give these kids a chance because players are injured. It's because they have this project, their next generation team, which plays in the third division and has been there for the last 5 years, and it's started really to produce players, and they've signed players for it, and it's kind of closed the gap between youth team and first team. But Juventus are currently top of the table in Serie A. It's the first time they have been alone at the top for an entire weekend for, I think, 3.5 years, which, considering Juventus won the league 9 years in a row, many people thought it would not be this long before they were all alone there. Obviously helped by the fact that Inter have been playing the Super Cup in Riyadh, which they won on Monday night with a stoppage time goal from Lautaro Martinez.
All right.
But Juventus no longer winning games by a nose, to use the equestrian analogy of a certain Allegri, but actually starting to score lots and lots of goals.
18 goals in the last 5 games, and a lot of them, 5 in the last 3, I think, is it, from Dusan Vlahovic?
Yes.
Right. We'll get on to that later on, because it's been quite the moment of the week already.
Yeah.
We're going to begin.
It's been a week.
We're going to begin today with the other big news from Italy, which is Gigi Riva. Sunday, one of Italy's greatest players ever left us, Gigi Riva, who passed away. Icon, legend, owner of the greatest nickname in football history, Il Rombo di Tuono. Man who played and scored in the game of the century. A man who made Cagliari part of Italy, set unmatchable numbers for the Azzurri, and used to warm up by breaking small children's bones.
With his shots, James. Yes, they were so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broke a child's arm in 3 places during his warm-up for a Lazio game once. We're not going to see his like again, James.
No, and it's a shame because Italy could really use a striker like Gigi Riva. And I think throughout the 90s and 2000s, there were all these kind of Hall of Fame centre-forwards that used to cover live, James, doing Gazzetta Football Italia. You think of your Del Pieros, your Vieris, even the lesser names like Chiesa, for example. None of these guys ever got close to Gigi Riva's record for the national team, which, when you compare it with, I don't know how many goals Cristiano Ronaldo scored for Portugal or Harry Kane has for England, 35 goals in 42 games does not seem a lot. But no one post-war got near him. His only sort of peers in that regard are Giuseppe Meazza, after whom San Siro is named, Silvio Piola, a guy, again, from the kind of interwar years who is the all-time top scorer in Serie A. But, Del Piero, for example, is, I think, like 8 goals behind him and obviously played so many more games.
That's an oddity, though, because all the national sides, all-ever top scorer, comes from the 21st century. David Villa, Giroud, I can tell you, Klose, all of them played in the 21st century.
Yeah.
But Riva's such an iconic figure, partly for his role with Italy, but I guess most of all for earning the national title at Cagliari, which was just unthinkable back in the 60s when he joined there. They were down in the second division. They won it in 69-70.
And perhaps would have won it again and again had he not suffered the injuries that he did playing for his country. That's, I think, something that a lot of Sardinians feel, that he was that good and made that team that good, that they could have won more than they ultimately did. But the idea of Cagliari winning the league is just unfathomable to subsequent generations. And the fact that he actually bonded himself and his legend with Cagliari, you mentioned it when you introed this section, James, that he was the person who made Sardinia feel like a part of Italy for the first time, because up until Riva's transfer, it was a place where the Carabinieri were sent to train if they weren't particularly good recruits. It was kind of commonly referred to as Italy's Africa and that sort of thing. So he brought Italy into Sardinia.
That title run, actually, supposedly that the authorities had to electrify much of the island so people could watch the games on TV. They had to install pylons and stuff. Convicts were arrested because they had to turn up to the Scudetti winning matches, all sorts of things. We detailed a lot of this in our salute to the iconic Gigi Riva in Golazzo back in 2019. Loads of good stories in there about this incredible man, a man who, in the words of the Gazzetta on Monday, scored with his left and spoke with his silence because he was an incredibly taciturn man. But what a figure, not just as a player, but then as the national team manager. But it was his shoulder that Baggio cried on in Pasadena after that penalty.
Yeah.
Cannavaro says it was Gigi, when he thinks of the World Cup win in 2006, it's Gigi Riva that he thinks of first, because just what a figure.
There was a lovely tribute on Sky Italia last night, which was a run of various talking heads, different generations of Italy players who'd obviously worked with him whilst he was in this role for the Italian national team. And then there was Marcello Lippi. And Lippi said he's like, un grande fumatore. It's like a great smoker. They had this real passion for cigars and that sort of thing. And he was, very fondly talking about just sitting with Gigi Riva, smoking, talking. As you said, a man of few words, but when he did say something, it kind of resonated. He had a charisma that came with that taciturnity, if you want. So yeah, and comes obviously 2 weeks after the death of Kaiser Franz, Beckenbauer. Both of them locked in that incredible game at the Azteca, or the game of the century, which you mentioned. And yeah, I think it's one of those things like, who is the greatest striker in the history of Italian football? Paolo Rossi passed away a few years ago. Rossi indelibly linked with the 82 win and catching fire in that tournament, like few Italian strikers have in a World Cup. But Riva, certainly, I think for generations, as you mentioned, that iconic nickname, the best nickname, Il Rombo di Tuono, the thunder roll, the thunder clap. And thunder rolls no more, James.
No more. But will, through eternity. All right, Gigi Riva. Magnificent. Next up, let's get on to some of this weekend's football. Yes, Rafa, Bundesliga. Rafa, let's see. Bayer Leverkusen beat Leipzig with yet another last-minute goal. And then the next day, what's this? Bayern lose. Rafa, 7 points now, the lead.
Ooh. Bayern have a game in hand.
They have a game in hand. It's coming up this Wednesday.
Tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever you're listening. Against Union Berlin. That was the game that was called off because of snow for Christmas.
Team without Bonucci now.
So Union will have a chance now. Bayern under real pressure after not just a bad result, but the performance for the first 70 minutes was shockingly bad. Thomas Tuchel, I think without being overly critical, saying they were static, there was no energy, there was no sharp passing. All the things that he had apparently seen in training, especially in that warm weather training camp in Faro a few days ago, were totally missing when Bayern went onto the pitch against Werder, and they kind of sleepwalked to defeat. They started playing a little bit later on. Tuchel made some changes, played with two strikers and two very attacking wing-backs in Coman and Sané. But by the time Bayern really got going, created some chances, they were just running out of time.
In some ways, this was an anomaly. We mentioned Werder Bremen's record against Bayern. They'd had the longest winless run against them of any winless run against another opponent in German football history. Bayern equally had a run of 65 matches scoring at home, which ended with this defeat. But in other regards, this wasn't that exceptional. Bayern do have games like this every season, and usually they can afford to have them. The difference this year is the boys from Bayer.
Someone's read my piece.
I actually thought this anyway, and then read your piece. I went, Rafa thinks that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're the only people to think.
No, it's not the most original take. But, I mean, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, Bayern on...
So are you.
Thank you. Bayern on 41 points halfway through the season. that's usually enough to be ahead. And we'd be talking about sort of stylistic problems and the Bayern not really fulfilling their potential. But we're talking about that in terms of what happens in the Champions League, because we kind of take it as a given that they will win the league. And I think the problem is Bayern played like a team that took winning the championship as a given. They didn't seem to, I think, realize the pressure they were under by Leverkusen's win. They didn't seem to think that they have to have a perfect season now because Leverkusen seem to have the perfect season. That kind of thing the penny hasn't dropped. It doesn't seem to have registered with them. And again, maybe it's not a huge surprise if you do this for more than 10 years and you always get away with it. Most dramatically last season when they won it with a really abysmal performances and very poor points tally. Maybe it's hard to convince yourself, that this time is different. We have to be a lot sharper. We can't afford to drop any points. They didn't play like a team like that. And Leverkusen now are putting them at a junction. Either Bayern now will respond and start fulfilling their potential and play with the kind of sharpness and humility that we see from Leverkusen every single week, or they cannot deal with that because they're not used to this anymore, and things will fall apart. I think it's going to be black or white.
Even if they do come together, it may not be enough because Bayern's lead is even with a win on Wednesday against Union, 4 points is a sizable
Yeah, they
lead.
Still play each other.
Yeah, February 10th.
So there's a chance for Bayern to cut this deficit.
Right.
And
let's talk a little bit about Leverkusen, because the game was against RB Leipzig, at RB Leipzig. They went behind, I think, twice in the game. A wonderful opening goal from Xavi Simons.
Yeah,
incredible goal.
I mean, I think that goal, when I was watching it and thinking about you and your question, as a dude ahead of time, moment of time, moment of the weekend. Yeah. I thought that this is going to be the moment of the weekend, but of course, subsequently overshadowed by Leverkusen's late winner.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But worth checking because it was an unbelievable goal.
Okay. Sepp Stafford Bloor calling out Alex Grimaldo for his two perfect set piece deliveries, rather.
Yeah.
And what an incredible bit of business he's been.
Oh, he's been sensational. And Leverkusen, I think, couldn't believe their luck that they got him. They couldn't believe that the Spanish national team had not called him up before. They were saying every international break, what is going on. And unlike one or two Premier League clubs, they actually want their players to be in the national team. They feel that they deserve it. They should get the recognition, and they feel that players benefit from it and grow from it. And they were it was almost a media campaign in Germany to say, Spanish National Federation, wake up. You've got Grimaldo.
Yeah, I really hope that Luis de la Fuente takes note of that because, Spain persevered with Jordi Alba for a long time and he was still very good. Many left backs who were quality started playing in Spanish football. Yuri, Gallá, Bernat, Reguilón. At the time, all of them looked like the next big thing. But I think that right now, Grimaldo is the best Spanish left back, bar maybe José Luis Gallá, who plays for Valencia and he's incredible as well. But based on the current form, Grimaldo has to be there.
He's a left wing back though, not a left back.
Yeah,
well, it makes a difference. It makes a difference, yes.
27 games unbeaten now for Leverkusen. Should flag up as well Borussia Dortmund, who are now only 1 point off third. 4-0 their win at Köln. That's right.
Köln, James. Köln. They've only been around for like hundreds of years, but yeah. Second really good win. Performance still a bit uneven at times, but better than against Darmstadt. And the main talking point from this game is the incredible impact of Ian Maatsen, because the guy's come in, he's looked like he's been playing left back for Dortmund for years and years. No problems on the ball, really happy to go forward, really happy to go back, great energy, great pace, everything you want from a left back, but even more because Dortmund have figured out we have this terrible build-up problems that go back a long way. Why not take a leaf from Guardiola and Klopp and a few others and put Maatsen as a midfielder in the build-up? And it had a massive impact because Madsen looked so comfortable on the ball, so happy to receive the ball with the back facing his own goal. And Dortmund were much better playing through that Köln press thanks to him. So for a guy who's young, who hasn't had any regular football at this level, to slot in the way he has it's been a huge bonus for Dortmund.
The Sancho return from the Premier League was the one that got the headlines, but Madsen arriving from Chelsea, is he on loan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great player, great impact, and
Right.
Dortmund a lot happier at the moment.
Let's talk about money. Let's talk about chocolate money.
Chocolate money rained down at that game.
What a dream.
Chocolate coins.
Chocolate coins.
Yeah.
Continued protest against the investor.
So the DFB
Deal.
are selling selling a part of their media rights.
The
to
DFL, the
Sorry,
league. The
right.
league are selling part of the media
Okay.
rights to either CVC or Blackstone.
Okay.
Private equity firms who will, of course, get a cut. Let's talk about 8% of the media rights for, I think, 10 years. And in return, the Bundesliga will get up to €1 billion up front, which they can spend on infrastructure projects. And a lot of it will be spent on digitalization and building up their own platform.
And the fans' view?
The organized fans are against it in principle. They say that the league should not sell anything to outside investors. They don't like the whole idea of private equity coming in. Bundesliga have tried hard to convince people that it's necessary to keep up, not with the Premier League because they're out of sight, but with the likes of Italy and Spain. France, not so much.
We've done it already as well.
What about the
Spain?
Saudi Pro League?
Yeah, that's not been mentioned
Okay.
too much. But yeah. But talking of
The clubs have voted for eventually.
the clubs voted for it, of course, by the narrowest of margins because they needed a 2/3 majority, and they got exactly that. They got 24 out of 36 votes. So not a ringing endorsement, if you will. But talking of protest, perhaps more important than the chocolate coins, in my personal view, there's a wave of protests in Germany, all over Germany this week, about the right-wing party, AfD, and its gains and its plans. And a lot of people are thinking enough is enough. We have to step up and show that we don't support this sort of stuff. And Christian Streich, the Freiburg coach, is always very outspoken about social issues. On either Thursday or Friday, spoke about it very eloquently in the press conference. And a lot of more people now in football are beginning to... Also, Xavi Alonso spoke out very movingly. A lot of people in German football, I think, are beginning to understand that now is the time to step up.
It's interesting the world we live in, where figures who you would normally expect to be this kind of safeguarders of certain values at having gone AWOL. It's the likes of footballing people who increasingly have to do that job.
Yeah,
Both
and
past
some
and
of
present
them are happy to use their platform, and I think it's great.
Me too. Rafa, before we move on, a quick word on Bayern's transfer policy. So Harry Kane in, Eric Dyer in, a move for Kieran Trippier we're reading about. The Wags are asking who's next, Dele Alli?
Yeah, Oliver Skip.
Oliver Skip.
Come in.
Really? Yeah?
No.
Oh.
Then it goes.
I mean, Bayern are looking for a right back. They're also looking for somebody, as they did with Kane, and to an extent Dyer, who will bring a bit more authority and energy to the dressing room. That seems to be still an issue, that they feel that it's too quiet, not enough people taking responsibility. And while they know that Dyer is not going to be a long-term solution, and Mazraoui's coming back soon, hopefully from his injury and being with Morocco, Tuchel wants that type of player.
Are they going to get him? Trippier?
Bayern will try hard. I think as we're recording, things are afoot. They will try and make it happen. See if Newcastle's public stance that he's not for sale will actually withstand a serious offer for somebody who, of course, is towards the later stage of his career and doesn't have that much left on his contract. So, yeah, let's see. I mean, it's again, it shows you in a way how much power Tuchel has amassed, because in the past, I think Hasan Salihamidzic or other people would have said, yeah, it's a nice player, but to spend now a lot of money plus wages on a player who's 33, no resale value. That's not really us. But I think Bayern have become a lot more short-term in their approach, and that's being reflected in the move for Dyer and possibly for Trippier as well.
Raf, you mentioned earlier that Bayern have fallen, 7 points off the pace. I mean, is this the beginning of them becoming more Spursy?
Yeah.
What is it about this Spurs
I think it'll be very hard.
Pochettino DNA that they want to?
It'll be very hard to turn Bayern into Spurs. They're so
but
big.
They're trying.
They're kind of isolated against, insulated against failure by virtue of their financial power and
maybe we'll see.
The
Coca
quality.
out.
Yeah.
7 points behind in the league. Alrighty. Oh, next up, we're off to the Netherlands. Michiel, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi there, guys.
Excellent. Now, Michiel, this game, PSV on for the record, away at a Utrecht side, 5th from bottom. Was there a huge amount of hype about this game?
Yeah, absolutely. PSV had looked a bit vulnerable at the end of their previous game when they tied the record for 17 wins from the start of the season that they themselves had set in 1987-88 when they eventually went on to win the European Cup. But yeah, I mean, everyone was kind of hoping for them to break the record. It's a very exciting team, very exciting coach in Peter Bos. But Utrecht, I mean, Utrecht were in good form, and you could tell that the players themselves at PSV were a bit more nervous around this game than they were in previous. So yeah, there was a lot of hype, and it seemed to affect PSV a bit, I would say.
Okay, well, with that monkey perhaps off their backs, they can comfort themselves with a 10-point lead that they still have a Feyenoord at the top of the table. Michiel, meanwhile, Ajax, who we talked a lot about earlier on in the season with their disastrous start, are still there in 5th place, 6 points off 3rd, but they've made a major move in the transfer market, bringing in Jordan Henderson. How popular a signing has he been?
Yeah, it's seen as a milestone signing for this team. Ajax have been incredibly impressive over the last few years, but yeah, ever since Erik ten Hag left, the side has imploded, and it's not just Ten Hag that left. It's been Daley Blind, it's been Dusan Tadic, Lasse Schöne in an earlier moment as well. So this team really lacks some kind of experience, some backbone. Edson Alvarez, another in midfield that they lost over the summer, and Henderson kind of has to do all of their tasks on his own now because it's a very young side. And everyone seems really thrilled by it. Steven Berghuis, after the game against RKC Waalwijk this weekend that they won 4-1, said, "Yeah, we're just really happy to have someone that is going to be experienced like behind us, behind him and Steven Bergwijn, two of the more senior players." Although he had a funny way of turning it around and said when people were criticizing him and Bergwijn that they were two of the best players, and if everything is going so bad, it might be the problem of the rest of the team rather than theirs. So it's not going to be an easy transition for Jordan Henderson in terms of coming into an environment that's completely well set up, I would say.
Michiel, it's Jules. I'm not sure if people at Ajax or the fans have seen Jordan Henderson playing recently, but anyway, it was reported that his shirt with the number 6, because obviously he could not wear the number 14, that would have really been too much for
maybe not.
Ajax. No, I think it would have been too much, trust me. I'm not a fan at all of Jordan Henderson, as you can tell, Michiel. I like the leadership, but for me, he's not a football player. And for him joining a club like Ajax, it's difficult for me to swallow. However, my question was, it was reported here, certainly in England, that his shirt has been like top sale in the history of the club or something like that. Is this for real?
I did see that it broke records in terms of how quickly it sold out, but I'm not sure if it's an actual record. But like, to put it into perspective, like Ajax are a side that usually creates their stars rather than signs them, and he has, like, in an era where people are more keen on wearing a football shirt than in previous seasons or decades, I would even say. Like, I can imagine like a player like Jordan Henderson has that kind of like extra a glamour to him, even though he's not that much of a glamorous player. But to put it into perspective, out of the players that have won a Champions League and won a Champions League final, he's only the 5th foreigner, I believe, to actually come and play for Ajax after the fact. So it's really rare for Ajax to have a proven Champions League winner from outside of the Netherlands in their squad, and I think the hype is really that big because of that, and it's because of the midfield just being really poor this season, and then bringing in someone like Jordan Henderson, who fairly recently has shown that he is able to compete at the top level. So I mean, expectations are ridiculously high, and it will be tough for him to live up to him, especially given that he's on a 2.5-year deal, and even though he's turning 34 this summer. So yeah, it's there are a lot of expectations, and Ajax is, as you say, a big club that that has that type of crowd expecting them to really come through now, and all eyes will be on Henderson in this case.
This sounds like a truly transformational moment in the history of Ajax. I think Jules was alluding to the fact that he couldn't wear the number 14 because it belongs to Johan Cruyff. This is the house Cruyff built. I mean, in 50 years' time, we'll be talking about like Hendersonian Ajax, or
No, we won't. He's not that.
Someone who has managed to somehow change the philosophy of this club, because the reception is pretty remarkable from the outside. I see this as almost like a reclamation project of English values for Ajax from the Vic Buckingham, the pre-Cruyff kind of sort of era. Is this what we're seeing?
Just
he's gone there to grow the game.
Obviously, Kelvin Bassey being a British homegrown player before, and Chuba Akpom landing there last summer as well, was kind of a prelude to this move, I would say. So yeah, this will be the British Ajax way from now on, I suppose. No, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, I think Ajax were really keen on having like that type of marquee signing, because they just feel that the players that they have there from their own academy are just not up to the required level yet. And I mean, Dusan Tadic has been such a transformational signing a few years ago, who is not like a typical Dutch Ajax kind of youth product either. So who knows? Maybe this is the Henderson era. I mean, it's only 6 points to get to a Champions League spot for them. So who knows?
Okay. The win at the weekend, 4-1, as you mentioned, over Valvik, and 2 of those goals scored by Brian Brobby. But is he now heading to Manchester United?
Well, he was quite clear that he's staying in Amsterdam at least this winter. But he's been improving so much over the season. When he was signed back from RB Leipzig a couple of years ago, people were doubting whether it was a good move. He didn't really show any kind of progress over the first year or so. But he has been the one positive for Ajax so far, and he's been unplayable from time to time. He's not really been your typical goal scorer yet, but the 2 goals against RKC were a good sign in that regard. And yeah, I mean, one defender at one point said like he's one of the best strikers in Europe, which was a bit of a overreaction, I think. But it kind of shows like how difficult he is to play against, and he's still quite young. He was making jokes about, I mean, maybe they should be calling back in the summer, so who knows, but yeah, for now that doesn't seem to be a real story.
All right, for now he'll be staying and helping their charge toward third spot. Michiel, thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Speak soon.
Michiel Jongsma. Next up, La Liga and a bit of Copa too. Spain, Alvaro. Big win for Girona, actually, yeah. And a return to form for that Barcelona. Ooh, and what's this? A narrow escape for Real Madrid against the team who hadn't won a single game all season, but went 2-0 up against Los Merengues.
Real Madrid, even. Real Madrid.
Real Madrid.
Yeah, for VAR.
Oh, Real Madrid.
Madrid. It's a scandal, scandalous.
All right, so there were 3 big decisions, and they all went against poor old Almeria, who looked like they were going to get their first win against, of all people, Real Madrid. Their first win of the season.
Yeah, definitely, because they started the game very well. They scored 2 goals in the first half. Real Madrid didn't have a single shot on target in the first half, and Edgar's goal was beautiful, a volley from outside the box, and really difficult to put it in that angle. And of course, when the game went 2-0 for Almeria in the halftime, we all knew that Real Madrid was going to try to trigger a remontada, and they were capable of that. I mean, when Real Madrid loses 2-0 at home, you know that they can still make it, okay? So the second half started, and there were 3 decisions that were terrifically, tremendously controversial, and the 3 of them were in favor of Real Madrid. And, I think that the goal from Vinicius was always a handball. But when the referee, who was a debutant at Santiago Bernabeu, by the way, 35 years old referee, went to the VAR monitor to check that, he wasn't given all the possible angles, all the possible replays of that handball from Vinicius. And based on what he saw, he said that there was no handball, and he gave the goal to Vinicius, and it was a clear handball. And then there was another goal that was scored after a penalty, that in my opinion, it was not a penalty. So basically, Joselu and Kaiki went for the ball. Kaiki, the defender, was trying to defend his box, and Joselu pushed him a little bit, and Kaiki touched the ball with his hand, and the referee called the penalty. Jude Bellingham scored it, and that was the first goal that it ended up being the first one for the remontada of Real Madrid.
Almeria had what would have been a third goal as well that was called back because of foul in the build-up, quite a way back in the build-up.
Yeah.
A hand in Jude Bellingham's face that looked pretty soft. But anyway, Real Madrid get the win and remain 1 point behind Girona. We were talking last week about how amazing
Girona.
Both are valid. I always say the same thing.
Alvaro says Girona.
I know.
Both are valid.
So last week we were talking about how great Real were looking. They smashed Barcelona in the Super Cup final in Saudi, done Atletico 2 in the semi-final. Since then, though, a little bit more shaky, not just this game, but the Copa at the last Thursday.
It was on Thursday.
Yeah,
yes.
When they got beaten 4-2 by Atletico. Diego Simeone getting his revenge there.
He did it, and he changed his game plan completely. He kept the substitutions for the extra time because at some point he sensed that the game was going to be long. And Atletico won it, and I think Real Madrid did a very good game as well. Anyone could have won. Also in the Super Cup, I think that Atletico was good too. Of course, they didn't create as many chances as Real Madrid, but they stayed in the game.
Antoine Griezmann, who was honoured before the match for having become the top goal scorer ever.
Which was lovely. He was very emotional with his wife and the 3 kids.
And
he marked the occasion with another spectacular strike.
With no angle. He scored it with the left foot. I mean, the thing with in that action is that the player chasing Antoine Griezmann was Vinicius. And Vinicius got a yellow card in the first half for some silly complaints. Vinicius, by the way, outside the ground that day, he got some racist chants as well from Atletico supporters. I don't know if Vinicius was aware of that. Anyway, during the game, he got a silly yellow, and I think that he was a victim of getting a silly yellow for himself, because in that action, he didn't make a fault on Antoine Griezmann. And then Griezmann got himself in a very difficult position, and I think that for players, it's instinctive almost. They think that a player will never score from there. But of course, a player of a quality of Antoine Griezmann can do that, and he did score from that angle. And I would say that Vinicius is a little bit of guilty in that goal because he should have made a fault on Griezmann too.
Very similar to the goal that Bremen scored against Bayern.
Very true.
With all of that, they are still behind Girona in the league after they managed a 5-1 win over hapless Sevilla, who've now lost 4 games in a row under Quique Sanchez-Flores, with an Artem Dovbyk 6-minute hat-trick for the league leaders.
Well, it's their Erling Haaland in a way. You can say that. I mean, he has scored 14 goals in La Liga, 5 assists, and he has scored 14 from an XG of 11 this season. So he's doing the job. Girona started losing this game, and they are the team in the big leagues who have gotten more points from losing positions, 22, more than Liverpool. And that tells you that they've got this character. They started losing against Sevilla. A Sevilla side, by the way, that they are trying to make amendments in the winter transfer, but I don't know if they are doing it right, because I have referred to how experienced and subsequently old Sevilla's squad is. They need younger players, but in this situation in particular, when they have to escape from relegation, maybe they need more experienced players, and they have got. Well,
Just saying.
It's a similar case in a way, I guess.
Absolutely.
But Sevilla got themselves Hannibal Mejbri from Manchester United on loan, and a player that I don't know much about. His name is Lucien Agoume, and he's French, and he's been on loan for 3-4 different clubs. He was the captain of the under-17.
Yeah,
Inter.
from Inter.
Yeah. I don't know.
A little prodigy, but the move to Inter didn't work. But he played well for Brest, your favorite team, last season in Liga.
But this is Sevilla now. They are resorting to this kind of youngsters as well to revert the situation. I don't know if this is the right thing.
The other Sevilla side this weekend,
Yeah.
Betis, lost for the first time against La Liga opposition at home, and it was a 2. Your friend Xavi and his Barcelona, who are looking back in form, a 4-2 win there.
The game encapsulated the bad things that Barcelona can do and the good things that Barcelona potentially could do as well, because they played well at some spells. Ferran Torres scored a hat-trick. Good goals, by the way. Lamine Yamal played probably his best game in Spanish football, apart from that one at Villarreal in September. And João Felix scored a beautiful goal with the outside part of the foot, a tribute to his compatriot Ricardo Quaresma, obviously. And I think that Betis, sometimes had too much control of the game, especially after they scored the first goal with Isco. Barcelona lost control of the game for 10 minutes, which is something that has costed them very badly in the Champions League and in La Liga over the last years. But this time they managed to correct themselves and get a win. And of course, a mention to Guardado, the Mexican player, because at the beginning of the game he got a tribute because he's going back to Mexico. He's been playing for Betis many years. He played for Deportivo de La Coruña for a number of seasons too, then he went to PSV Eindhoven, but he's been one of these good players who has set up the standards of La Liga, technically speaking. A good midfielder with tasty on the ball, and he's been very good in Spain, really.
Okay. Barcelona third then, a full 8 points behind Girona, although they and Real Madrid both have a game in hand on the league leaders. Very good. We've got cup action coming up midweek. Tuesday it's Celta Vigo against Real Sociedad. Wednesday Mallorca against Girona, and your lot Athletic against Barcelona. And then on Thursday Sevilla will try and get a win against Atletico Madrid. Look forward to seeing how all of that works out. Now, Totally Football Show is sponsored by Google Pixel, and while it wasn't a good weekend for Sevilla, it was a good weekend for their former Europa League winning left-back Sergio Reguilon, subject of the latest Beyond the Frame feature from The Athletic's Jay Harris. Hey everybody, let's talk Serie A. Let's talk Juventus. James, they haven't lost a game since September. They've won their last 7. They've scored, as we mentioned earlier, 18 in their last 5. And since Yildiz has come into the side, Vlahovic is on fire.
Yeah, Vlahovic, who at the beginning of the transfer window was subject to rumours about his future because he always looked frustrated. He's had this kind of chronic groin issue. He wasn't scoring goals. Now he can't stop scoring goals. I mean, against Sassuolo, I think on Monday night, was it? He scored a wonderful free kick. First Juventus player to score a brace in back-to-back games since Higuain, quite a long time ago. It's something that even Cristiano didn't do whilst he was at Juve. So that's been big for Juventus because Chiesa, for example, has been injured. I wonder if Chiesa can get back into this team at the moment with Yildiz playing in the way that he has done. He's been a great signing from Bayern as part of that Delict deal. I think that they did. And Juventus have gone from this team that just looked to keep clean sheets and nick games 1-0 to one that, as you mentioned, James, is scoring a lot of goals. They play Empoli at the weekend, and then February 4th at San Siro, there's the Derby d'Italia against Inter. Inter's first game back from the Super Cup, which they won in Riyadh, is against Fiorentina. And the teams that went to the Super Cup in Saudi Arabia have been complaining that the suspensions that they picked up whilst they were out there would be carried into the league as well. So Çalhanoğlu and Barella will miss the game against Fiorentina.
That's so bizarre because the Coppa Italia doesn't normally have the suspensions carried into the league.
So
why would the Super Cup do that?
Because it's Serie A, James. They make things up as they go along. So Aurelio De Laurentiis, the Napoli owner, for example, gave another press conference after Inter's defeat
Because Simeone, his red card in that final was key to Inter getting the late win, and now so he's going to be suspended.
And Osimhen's obviously away on the African Cup of Nations. They've still got Raspadori, but so I mean, Inter picked up suspensions for Çalhanoğlu and Barella in that game. So all of these little things could potentially have a bit of an effect going into this. It's not a title decider, but a massive game on February 4th, and you can tell that this is not the best Juventus side that Allegri has had at his disposal, but you can see as the season's gone on, they've grown and grown in confidence. There's a real unity about this group. I think every part of the team has had a bit of a crisis over the course of the season. The defence has had lots of injuries, apart from Bremer, who's playing really well. The midfield obviously lost Pogba. You could say they never had Pogba. Lost Fagioli, the young player of the year last year in Serie A. It's gone through that. Rabiot, for example, was missing at the weekend.
Injured,
Chiesa. Has anyone seen Chiesa lately? No. Vlahovic obviously had his injury problems and went on that drought. Moise Kean looks like he's leaving. Milik's not really played as well as he did last season, even though he's come through big. So I think all of this kind of puts into perspective what a fine job Allegri is kind of quietly doing.
There's been a lot of talk, James, about Napoli lining up essentially a new manager to take over from Walter Mazzarri, a new manager with a very exciting name.
Would that be one Jose Mourinho?
One Jose Mourinho. Is he having talks with Napoli this week?
Well, look, Jorge Mendes, his agent, has said that he will have a new job soon, but it can't be in Italy, at least in terms of the immediate term, because we've just been talking about Serie A rules, James. One of them is that a coach cannot coach two different teams in the same season. So it would have to be for the following year rather than this one. I think, obviously Mourinho was subject to some wonderful tributes at the Stadio Olimpico at the weekend, which were kind of, critical of the owners of Roma, critical of the players of Roma, but very much still devoted to the Mourinho cult of personality. So, we saw Jose, someone who was once so associated with Chelsea, then go and work for Man United, then go and work for Tottenham. This is a man who was once so associated with Inter, who's become so associated with Roma. Maybe he will work his way through Serie A top clubs.
Yeah.
But I think it's still too early for there to be a change. So we'll see. Although I do remember when Rino Gattuso was coach and things weren't going well at this time of that season, that De Laurentiis was already meeting Spalletti in car parks and stuff. So to propose that he'd become the new manager of Napoli, so there you go.
Okay,
Napoli. Not late at night in car parks.
Napoli currently down in 9th place, but with a game in hand. Roma, who are just above them, a point better off, with a 2-1 victory over struggling Verona, but looking a bit better under Daniele De Rossi. That was, I think, the take. Would you agree?
Particularly first half, James.
Yeah.
I mean, they moved away from the system that Jose has been playing for the last couple of years, which is a back three, so they played with a back four. Quite fluid. Dybala, Pellegrini playing. El Shaarawy played really well as well, got a couple of assists. They should have been home and dry in the first half. And then the kind of nerve set in. They gave away a penalty, which Verona luckily missed. To go back to Alvaro's point about XG earlier, which you said was a 0.08.
Eventually.
Okay.
It was a long time, a 0.81. But then
So Falruncho's shot, which was from like 30 yards, had a 0.01 XG.
Seriously.
And Rui Pasticcio
So 1 in 100.
managed to throw it into his own goal.
All right.
So that goal was more difficult than the one
Yes.
Arezzo scored.
Yes.
According to the number crunchers, yes. Anyway, a win for Daniele De Rossi and his debut as Roma manager. Milan winning again their match 3-2 at Udinese. But that was a game marked by another episode of racial abuse with Mike Maignan, the Milan keeper, leading his teammates off the field after repeated insults from some members of the crowd at the Dasher Arena.
That's now the Blue Energy Stadium.
Sorry, the Blue Energy Stadium. Right. But let's talk about what happened there and the response to it.
So I mean, the game should have been abandoned because as much as the referee, Fabio Maresca, follows the protocol, which is kind of like 3 strikes and you're out, there was a third strike. And, it came after the game resumed following a suspension. Udinese, who were 1-0 down, scored an equaliser a few minutes after the game restarted. And there was a video circulating online of the aftermath of that goal, taken from behind Mike Magnan's goal, where there is one individual who shouts racial abuse, the same racial abuse, 12 times at Maignan. And if the referee had been made aware of that, if Maignan was aware of it, the game should have not continued and ended 3-2 for AC Milan. It should have finished 3-0 in the 41st minute to AC Milan. So, I think, ultimately, Maignan had to come out and play knowing there was a racist sat behind him for an hour, at least one. Now, in terms of the response, yes, James, we often talk about the dilapidated, crumbling infrastructure of Italian football with stadiums that have an average age of at least 60 that were built for the World Cup in the 1930s, or at least the Blue Energy Stadium, as it's now owned, is one of the few modern stadiums. It is telecamered up within every inch of its life. And so they were able to identify one of the perpetrators relatively quickly, who has not only been given a kind of football banning order, which has a limited duration of just 5 years. Udinese said, look, we are banning this guy for life. He will never be allowed to step foot in the stadium. There'll be a separate police investigation as well. That is currently ongoing. But yeah, I mean, Maignan in every season that he's been in Serie A has been racially abused. Be it in Sardinia when he played against Cagliari, be it in Turin when they played against Juventus, be it in Udine against Udinese. Racism is not a football problem, it's a societal problem. It's not just an Italian problem, although this does play out in the context in which, there was a commemoration of a couple of activists on the right who were killed, in which there was a crowd doing a Roman salute, which then a court ruled is fine as long as it's in a commemorative context. There's ordinarily a Roman salute would constitute an offence, but we've now got courts saying, well, as long as it comes in a specific kind of context, it's absolutely fine. Which I don't think is, as Raph was talking about the right wing, the far right, sort of beginning to be more and more vocal in Germany, certainly in Italy. At this moment in time, there is a lot of that going on. I wouldn't say endorsed by Giorgia Meloni's government, because Meloni's been quite pragmatic since she's been in charge, but certainly I think only kind of enables and emboldens having that kind of politics being front and centre.
All right. Yeah, troubling times the world over. Nice to see some swift action happening about that, but a lot more clearly needs to be done in Serie A and elsewhere. Next up, Jules, at last,
yes.
La France.
Coupe de France.
Coupe de France, Jules, give us some headlines. Bosch.
Yeah, Saint-Priest is the minnows. They play in the fifth
Another
division.
Sant.
Another Sant, exactly.
Yeah.
Like Santa Cristina.
They're from the fifth tier.
They're from the fifth tier. They're
Where,
not far
where
from
is
Lyon.
Saint-Priest?
So near Lyon, in that area.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
And the president, I think, nicely said after they win.
They are a saint.
They said they are saint. After they win on Sunday against Romorantin, so a team from the fourth division, it was not a big upset then, but it's big that they're there. He said the cup is like the cherry on the cake, but with raspberry and blueberries.
Damn, like a gâteau, he probably said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So who've they got in the quarterfinals?
It's a very good question. They play Valenciennes at home, don't they?
Last 16 next.
Yeah, Valenciennes were bottom of the Ligue 2, so the championship. So they have a big chance to qualify.
Okay, I see that Nantes and Will Stills Reims both got knocked out by a lower tier opposition, Stade Laval and Sochaux, respectively. The holders are out too, Toulouse. Yeah. They got done by Rouen.
Yeah, Rouen. One of the historical clubs in the third division. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
We had amazing penalty shootouts because in that game, Rouen scored all their 12 penalties.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they won 12-11.
Right. So they didn't get one wrong.
Very nice. No, to the point that one guy even shot twice.
Really?
Because we restarted. They scored all the 12 penalties, and we had a big penalty shootout in the Rennes-Marseille game because Bruno Gattuso is out. of the French Cup, and this time finished 9-8.
Okay. Lyon, down the road from Saint-Priest.
That's right.
They beat amateur side Bergerac on Friday. Bergerac were down to 10 men.
Yeah, and just about. It was not pretty from Lyon, but they won. And one of the two new players, new signings, Malik Fofana, the wonder kid from Belgium, 18-year-old, did really well. And now we're waiting for Gift Orban to the other signing that they have. Remember when he was outstanding for Ghent?
Yes.
When he came to Europe. Waiting for him to make his debut for them.
Not the only gift that they're hoping for in Lyon. Jules, raises eyebrows.
Although the story about Karim Benzema, maybe them trying to bring him home.
Yes.
Is right now certainly.
Now
not
Jordan's
really
left. What point is there?
Yeah, I mean...
Kareem, there has been.
No, come on, behave. You should behave. But yeah, it'd be interesting to follow. I just don't think it will happen.
You don't think it's going to happen?
No, maybe in the future.
His boyhood club?
No, I think he wants to.
He wants to leave.
Well, sometimes he wants, sometimes he doesn't. He's not sure if it's a good idea to go back where he all started.
All right.
We've seen in the past that it didn't always work, so we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. Monaco is for sale.
Is it?
Finally, yeah.
Okay.
Rybolovlev, who bought the club for €1 in 2011. Apparently, he's waiting to hear if there's potential buyers. He owns 66%. You remember he bought the club to have the Monaco passport, and he's still waiting.
He hasn't got the passport yet?
No, he got done badly. Yeah. He invested a lot of his own money after buying the club for €1, and the prince still
was involved in the biggest divorce payout.
Until I think I remember he bought a flat in New York for his daughter for $88 million as well. One flat. There's just one flat. And he's obviously still involved in Monaco Gate, which is a big scandal where they found out that his lawyer was very, very close to some police and justice people in the principality. So
painful.
Great guy.
Painful 13 years, eh?
Yeah.
Painful. Prince Albert. Yeah.
So, any word on who might be buying it? Is it some local businessman who's made good, or?
It seems the Americans are quite keen. We just don't know exactly how much it's worth because, as we know, the fans are great, but there's not many of them.
Yeah.
So the revenues can't really grow much higher, so they lose money every year, even with the tax haven that they are. So it's just not an easy sale, I think.
All right.
Would the royal family intervene?
Well, yeah, they own the rest, so he's on 66%.
Could they buy him out?
They own. I don't think that's.
Here's a passport. We'll take the club.
That's not what they want because they don't want to put their money in the club. So they need someone rich to do what Rybolovlev has been doing for the last 12 years, like redo the whole training ground for 50 million, all that kind of stuff. He also paid for the A&E at the hospital.
Really?
Rybolovlev himself, still no passport yet. So
but they've sold so many players, Jules, over the years. Surely is that not enough to keep the club going?
Well, certainly the last 2 or 3 years they've made losses. Even when they sold really well last summer, and there will be more sell like Fofana and other people this summer. But yeah, the revenues are just too low. So
good Lord.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about that and Karim and all the other big stories next week on the Totally Football Show. For now, that wraps it up. Many thanks to you, Jules, Rafa, Alvaro, James, Liam and Charlie in the booth, and you, most of all you, listener. We're back on Thursday with a regular Totally Football Show. Perhaps you'll join us for that. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.